Welcome to today's episode of CLCI Live, brought to you by the award-winning and ICF accredited school, Certified Life Coach Institute. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode.
Hi, welcome. This is CLCI. We're back. We missed you guys last week. And it's 5 o'clock. Oh my goodness. There's so much change going on in the world. Today we're going to talk about ICF. Before we delve into that, I'm going to turn it over to Jerome. Jerome, it's all you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We did miss you guys last week, but that was for a good reason. So we can go ahead and refresh and update for our new time. We're now prime time, 5 o'clock. Expect to see us at this time moving forward. And hopefully we can expect to see some more of you guys join us since for the most part, again, prime time, we should be hoping that some of you guys are free, that we weren't used to being free at this time. So we're excited to have you guys kind of go through ICF and what that is really, common questions that we get about ICF, and kind of explore that entire realm of the ICF. So we're excited to get started on that. And
what's ICF?
I think a good question to start with is, what is ICF? What is that? We can start with International Coaching Federation if you're unaware of at least the acronym. So what is the ICF, everyone?
So we use International Coach Federation, or formerly here on in this conversation, we'll say ICF. ICF, we use them as a standard, the golden standard of what credentialing means and accreditation mean, what that standard is set so that we all understand that certification is important and that we meet a criteria under that credentialing and accreditation. Now I'm using two words separately for a specific reason. Dan, why am I doing that?
Oh, no.
I was going to ask, I heard the intonation differently in your voice. Like, what does that mean? So the differences between credentialing and certification. I talk with my hands a lot. So certification is about education only. We have level 1 and level 2. You have two different certificates.
I think we have skipped ahead, if I'm honest. I think we have jumped ahead. I think we have put the cart on the horse here.
Reel it back in.
Why does anybody care? Let's talk about, no, serious though. Let's talk about the whole, why would I need a credential or a certification? Do life coaches need these things? Like, technically, can anybody call themselves a life coach?
Technically, anybody can hang a shingle.
Yep.
But do you want to go to someone who just hung a shingle? Not me.
Yep. And the ICF is the big dog in coaching, credentialing, certification process, defining what is coaching and what should someone expect when they hire a coach versus getting potentially someone who's either really is a therapist or is playing therapist because they think they're going to put on this hat that says coaching and tell people what to do, or they're actually doing consulting and mentoring, which is about advice giving, where coaching truly isn't about that. And the other side of it is
Wait.
I
don't get to tell people what to do if I'm a coach or give advice.
What do I do different? I mean, that's what I
tell me to do things all the time when I was a kid. Isn't that
those are called parents?
Yeah.
Or sports coach.
Yeah.
So I know that this is actually something that comes up a lot for us especially a lot of times we get people who want to be coaches, and when they find out that they are just asking questions, that this isn't, they sort of go into a shocky mode. They go into this phase of like, well, what do? I have no clue. And what's my value? And what's the point? And there's no value in just asking questions. How do you respond to that?
Two different levels.
Mm-hmm.
Your value is not your question. Your value is not what you know. Your value is in the client's transformation, and it's not about transaction either, because you're not selling your time, you're selling transformation.
But a client's coming to me, they want something. Like I have to be able to tell them they're getting, like I'm giving them, like I have to, these are the questions. So I'm genuinely.
I get it.
So they're going to want something. I can't tell them that I'm just going to ask questions. I can't, they want something.
They want the space to be seen and heard.
Yeah.
They wanted the ability to dream without judgment.
And they want to know they matter. And they want to know they matter by self-discovery in the moment, they may not recognize that when they say they want someone to assist them or coach them or whatever. But ultimately, once they get going, I mean, think of yourself. When have you liked to be told what to do? Mostly, none of us do. Sometimes we'll take a bit of advice now and again, but overall, we're going to do what we want to do. And I would rather somebody pull it from me than sit there and start telling me what to do.
Um,
The heart of it, I mean, most of the time we know what we want to do, but we don't listen to our own internal voices because we've never been given the space to really let it out, because people tell us you shouldn't do that, or why would you do that? They get all kind of judgmentally with us.
okay, question for everybody here. What is something that you have wanted to do that you stop yourself from doing?
In what relation?
Killing people count.
Oh, you mean as a coach?
Just in general, in any situation, like give an example of like, I'm coming to you and I'm, we're talking about this concept of people wanting to do things but being told they can't, and so they decide they can't. What is an example from you personally in your life of something that you want to do that you had somehow convinced yourself otherwise?
I can tell you.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought of now I'm computing what the question is. There was somebody who was in my sphere who I was young, early 20s, maybe 19, early 20s. I thought, I want to bodybuild. I want to get into bodybuilding. And this person told me, you're not going to do that. You're never going to follow through with it. They had to be the voice of reason and be the bubble popper. And at that time, especially in that age, I didn't have a huge voice and I didn't have a huge boundary or understanding what boundaries were. And I believed her. I let her have my voice.
Lisa, you can still bodybuild.
So
I'm
been absolutely shredded right now.
I think I have one.
Dan, do you have one?
Go ahead, Dan.
I do. Jerome has his first, then I'll go.
Okay, mine will be quick. Well, maybe it will, maybe it won't. So I, for some reason, no, I know the reason. I stopped myself from going out and trying to attain new friends, because you hear all the time, your circle gets smaller the older you get. So don't waste your time on, going out and trying to grow that circle, because the older you get, the smaller it gets. I think I have that limiting belief within me that kind of holds me back from going out and trying to meet new people from different walks of life. I'm just kind of, I guess, stuck would be, I guess, the right word, in the norm, in the usual, in what I'm used to, who I met in college, and not really beyond that.
So as a coach, what would you do next? How would you help him, Dan?
Tell me about your goal of meeting people. What kind of people do you want to meet?
Different people, different than what I'm used to, different from me. I think I can get along with just about anyone. I'm more interested in just variety in friends.
Okay, variety in friends means what?
Friends that do different things than the current friends that I have right now, friends that are interested in different things than my current friends are interested in.
What would those different things be, to give me the sense of what different means?
Probably something I'm interested in.
You're still talking out here.
Okay.
Pull it down.
Okay. More outdoorsy friends that like to consistently enjoy the outdoors.
Okay. When you're enjoying the outdoors with these friends, what kind of things are you doing to enjoy it? Go ahead.
Hang on one second. I'm going to show what is not coaching for a second.
Be that not a coach.
So in hearing you, Jerome, it sounds like you're wanting more friends. You're wanting to have a different kind of friends, and you want to be outdoorsy. Have you ever thought about going on hikes? I know you live in California. There's some really great hiking places close to Redlands.
Yes.
Ooh, I want to try not being coach.
I'm not a coach. What happened there is I told him what to do. Maybe I have a big heart. I want to be helpful, but it's still not coaching. Go ahead, Dan. Pick up from where I did interrupt. But I
just-
wanted
Anthony was in next. and
Anthony's
then-
next. Anthony's going.
Hey, Drum, you're getting older. Natural to lose friends as you age. Maybe you should just accept the fact that you're getting less fit, you're getting ugly, might be getting stupider. I don't know. But why don't you just accept who you are? Because finding acceptance, you'll be more at peace. So you should do now.
Never thought about that. Thank
Dan,
you for that, Anthony.
I'd like to hear what you have to say to one of.
Anthony gives terrible advice.
while we're jesting, that's what a lot of people will do is they'll stop the coaching process, which Dan was doing amazing and building a story. And then the coach will have an idea and interrupt that process and start sharing it. Okay, Dan, make us better coaches. What would be a better thing to do?
Now I want to play the not be a coach game.
Okay.
It's more fun.
Sorry, Jerome, you're never actually gonna
Yeah.
get anywhere with us.
No
So
friends.
Jerome, do you think you'd have more friends if maybe you weren't such a fan of the New Orleans Saints?
Knew that was coming.
Might be.
So when we talk about these different things, maybe a different football team?
That's what I was thinking. Maybe something a little more red.
I know though, in the beginning, in Lisa's example, when Lisa what she's genuinely, it sounds as if it is harmless advice. It sounds as if it is helpful. It is, but what we learn as coaches that I think is important to state is that by giving him the answer of hiking, of doing that, you have already made his world smaller. You have already given him a solution that maybe is not the best or ideal solution for him. It is your solution. And so you have, in essence, taken a whole world of possibility and done what every other person on the planet does and shrunk it down to this much and not let him explore who he really is and what he really wants.
Speaking of value,
the most-
Lisa's response, she asked, have I ever thought about going out and hiking? I'm assuming by myself. The answer is yes, I have. So that response has little to no value to me.
And that's the way it's framed too, is when it's advice in the form of a question, it seems like it's not really advice, but the answer is really there. And I was like, of course I have. I live in California.
It's a bit condescending and kind of passive aggressive to ask those questions.
Well, exactly. And to bring this all back around, why does this matter? How does this relate to ICF? Well, this is because this doing this right now shows you that ICF, they have created a very specific structure of what coaching is, and that is the coaching model. And that is this model of question asking and empowering your client, and letting them be the master of their own life and destiny, essentially. And they have very clearly laid out what this is. And that coaching model is the most widely accepted. ICF is the most widely accepted, and being within those, I guess, boundaries of what coaching is very important, because it's the wild west. Otherwise, out there, nobody is you can't, anybody, I have training, but anybody could put on a hat, or you don't even have to wear a hat, but call yourself a life coach and go out there and start doing it. And there are some that are tremendously successful and tremendously valuable and helpful, but that does not always mean that they are in fact offering coaching and what coaching is, at least within the model of ICF.
A lot of times they're more on the mentor side, or they are more on the consulting side and aren't really a coach at all, because that standard is an important piece so that we recognize who we are in this process, and how our job is to have the client tell us where they want to go, what they want to do. So for them to be empowered, not for me to have the power.
And seeing a big part of that is seeing the client as healthy, whole, and complete, even if they don't feel that way, because we're not fixing them. They're not broken. They've just forgotten they're okay. And that's a very different thing than being broken.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about your statement. that it was a powerful statement. So within, I mean, are there any other governing bodies out there? Is my other question. Is the next?
That's what I was going to ask too. Does ICF have competition we got to take care of?
They would be the comparison of your local neighborhood burger joint that has 2 locations to McDonald's at this point.
Mhm. I mean, at this point, the U.S. government has acknowledged ICF as acceptable training for their federal employees, for their executives, and it's only ICF. So they've really, even the government has put their weight behind ICF and what it is they are doing and what it is they are offering.
And they're active in, I think the last time I looked, it's like 130 countries, 40,000 members, 30,000 of them are credentialed. Of that, 16,000 and change are ACC, 11,000 and change are PCC, and about 11 or 1,200 are MCC. So when you think about the plethora of coaches that are out there, and only 30,000 of them are holding credential, that says a lot about
even so,
this organization.
I was surprised at the number of, because I was recently looking at the global coaching study, and I was surprised they say within the study that there are 71,000 coaches worldwide. And that just doesn't seem like enough to me. It seems like there should be far more, but according to that study, that's where it is. But of course, that may be with it that are, I'm going to pull it up so that I have the exact information. But yeah, I was surprised. I was like, wow, it seems like there should be more.
Competition, there's smaller companies out there that are providing a similar service.
Now, this is something that is we get all the time, being somebody who talks to students before they come to class or afterwards. There are a lot of people who go out and get training, and then they specifically want the training so that they can use it in a certain capacity, and then they find out that training is not ICF accredited, and that's sometimes when they come to us because they've already been through 6 months of training and then they just want to do the 3-day, and it works out very nicely for them. But a lot of times they're very frustrated. And what is, for you guys in your experience, what's the best way to find out if a school is accredited?
Well, I want to back up it just a little bit. We make it easy so you can see that we're accredited. We have the link on our home page. So you can just tap on it and it takes you to ICF. And so that's the easy thing. Not everyone has it on their websites. Most of the schools will have the logo that they provide us, they meaning ICF. They provide each school a logo. They've updated their logos currently as well. There's the that you can go to. I forgot the title of it, Brooke. I know you remember.
The TPSS system.
Stands for the Training Program Search Service.
Yeah.
All of the ACTP, all the AS accredited.
Oh God. Okay, that's the one thing for those of you who are where this video is for the newer people, for people who aren't, fully versed. One thing to prepare yourselves for, just get ready.
Lots of
acronyms are coming your way when you become a coach. Like they are inescapable. It is a part of coaching. You will have an acronym thrown at you now and again. And getting them all straight is not always possible. So again, what we were talking about, so using the TPSS system, which you can find through ICF if they have their logo. It's simple. I mean, really, you want to get on the website and make sure they're there on ICF's website, and they have that coachfederation.org page, essentially.
It's really, I think, important to make sure you verify. There had been some not so honorable people using logos. That's, I think, part of the encouragement for ICF to change how they're doing things as well, so that us honorable ones are acknowledged.
Let's talk quickly about the coaching model again. Let's go back to that a little bit and what that is and what that looks like and what it is, what it isn't, but also what is, if I am a coach, I am a consultant, can I integrate coaching into my consultancy? How does that work? How does all of that function? Because we get a lot of people, or niching even, like, do I have to have special training to be a health coach, or to be an X, Y, and Z, a transformation coach? And what do you say to them?
So if you're coming to us, right? So I'm going to talk as if you're coming to us. You're coming to an accredited program with ICF. We're going to keep all the vocabulary neutral so that you can move it into any niche you want. Coaching, model, behavior, interaction can all flow in any direction, any niche. Obviously, if you have no knowledge, let's just say, if you're wanting to become a marketing coach, if you have no knowledge about marketing, can you become a marketing coach? No. Right? So you're going to utilize the information that you already have, that wisdom that you've already built within yourself, and add that coaching. Oops, I forgot to turn my phone off.
Me too.
And for and be the coach that is an expert in whatever that direction is. As I am a couples coach, I have taken lots of training in relationship work. I started that training back when I was 20 something, not 20 something anymore, but I keep taking more and more training, because one, vocabulary shifts, words shift into a new direction. So I pick up tools and tips and techniques, but I also stay fresh into the process of what it needs to be.
Devil's advocate here. So if coaching is just asking questions, what do I need training for? Like, what are you going to teach me? I know how to ask a question.
Yeah, most people don't know how to ask a question. In fact,
what?
And I'll go even further.
Right now,
they don't know how to ask the powerful questions that actually create breakthroughs for the client, because they aren't present with the client. They're thinking about what they want to say to add to the conversation, instead of pulling the conversation out of the client, which is what the coaching model is about.
And as we've said, that empowers them, that brings that them to have the answers. Now, I know there's a lot of flack that sometimes coaches get about being too goal oriented, or pushing people to, just being. Can you speak into that at all, if you?
Yeah, I'm happy to, because those are the coaches that irritate me to no end, that feel like I've got to get this person to a breakthrough right now, and they're paying me for this result, and we're going to get you there now. No, that's putting your agenda that you have to get them to a breakthrough prior to or ahead of the client's process and how they want to go through it. Not every session will have an action step or an outcome. There's a lot of sessions that are all about unpacking, and the client gets their movement in between sessions. The ones who are out there who are all gung-ho that we got to make something happen now, they're not honoring coaching in that way, and they're pushing, in a lot of cases, they're pushing the client too hard. There's a time to adjust for that, and there's a time to ask those challenges and put them in, but always giving the client the option to say no, and asking their permission to challenge them.
Would it be appropriate to say that probably around maybe 80% of the work of coaching happens outside of the coaching session, as reliant on the client? Or maybe even upward more than that as well?
Well, I would definitely say that the impactful way that coaches integrate with the client allow for that client to get in a deeper place with the process, because otherwise they'd already be doing it on their own. So that client coach relationship allows that building of that deeper connection with whatever direction that client's going.
And I would even add there, just by being with the client and allowing for the conversation to take place, because of that what you just said there, Lisa, they wouldn't be, if they could do it on their own, they'd be doing it. Having the conversation is going to get them there faster, more likely than not having the conversation. So whose time frame is the agenda? Because some coaches out there might want to be like, we're going to get you to a certain place in 3 months, but maybe that client's timeline is 6 months or a year, and they're comfortable with that, but they still reach their outcome.
By the way, Sue has been watching and I have missed all of her comments. And hi, Sue, how are you? And she says, by the way, she said she's a Bengals fan and that she says, I'm getting better at asking questions and shutting up, she said. So just wanted to interject there. I was like, hey, sorry about missing you, Sue. I hope you're still there. Beyond, so again, this thing with your value coming in, your advice, Dan, there's something that you say that I love. There's I guess it's a story you tell, and that we as people aren't actually, while we like to pretend we like to be told what to do, we really don't. And that when we ask for advice, we actually already know the answer. Like we know the advice we want. And that's why we go to certain people. I call it co-signing your BS.
It may or may not be, because I would, for example, after a tough coaching session or something that was impacting me, that I wasn't leaving into the session, I would have like 5 different people I would go to. The one who I know what I needed from them was, right? So if I needed to be challenged, I would go to that person. If I needed to like, oh, you did a good job, so it could be co-signing the BS, or it could be very helpful. So knowing that is important too.
Well, is it a coach's job to be all of those things on some level? I mean, if you're not giving advice, but to be able to be somebody that can be a cheerleader or be the positive, but also be the challenger, but also does a coach play all those roles, but without advising, right?
And without attachment to the outcome.
Really, it could put it as that it is just, it's a different way of communicating, really is what it is. You're still assisting, you're still helping, you're still providing, it's a totally different way of communicating with another human being. I think that's that habit of breaking that. It's funny because with students who take level 1, a lot of times they will be, they'll afterwards they'll be like, well, but I have the advice to give, and I have this, and what do I? And they get very flustered, still not knowing what the purpose is. And I always try to remind them that the magic is in this space. The magic is in the questions, and it's also freeing because you can, if you trust it and you are fully equipped. If you trust the client, trust the process, you're fully equipped to help with any situation, anything that's going on. I mean, apart from, of course, DSM-5, and but you don't have to come with this wealth of knowledge, this laundry list of things you have done and books you have written and all of this. You can literally show up and know how to create a safe space and ask the right questions or powerful questions and be effective. And that is kind of, I think, should be freeing for folks.
I did a 10-minute session recently. 5 minutes of us was the client and I sitting in silence. And it was one of the most powerful sessions I ever did.
How do you do that? Like how, like, trust me, I've sat in silence and but do you have any tricks? Do you like what's going through your head?
Because of what was on the table at that moment. 5 minutes had we just had the client said something and I'd not spoken for 5 minutes would have been really uncomfortable. But because of what was on the table, I just asked, how about if we take the next 5 minutes and just be here? And that person was like, okay, great.
Okay.
Silence for 4.5, 5 minutes. And yeah, I was glancing up at the clock. It's like, okay, another 30 seconds have gone by. Oh, another 30 seconds have gone by. And then it was time, just like, so I don't want you to be shocked when we go back to the main room. So I'm just giving you a heads up. We have a minute left. And it was powerful. Watching the body shifts and the silence and the smiles, they took a lot away from it.
Another question that I'm curious about.
Can we talk about this a second? So that was an exchange of Dan really watching and hearing what the client was saying and how that client was breathing and how the words were coming out. That his instinct, he trusted himself in this process, that he allowed that instinct or intuition, whatever word you want to throw in there, and go, oh, here's a thought, and let me just check in with you. well, is that what you want to do? So it wasn't Dan. And so the difference of what I did earlier with Jerome and what Dan did is he followed the client's lead. The client basically in his behavior was asking for this. And Dan recognized it and put a word to it. Whereas Jerome, what I did with Jerome when we were playing, I was definitely, love Jerome first off. So I have care and concern for him. And he wants more friends that are, and truly, here, have you thought about this? And oftentimes, most of the coaches out there, before they've gotten trained, you all have hearts. You all want to be helpful. You all want to give unrelentlessly. And yet that's not helpful. So following the lead of the client takes patience, it takes calmness, it takes trusting the process. And you got to trust yourself as well. Have you ever made a mistake, Dan, in your coaching where you have misunderstood what was going on?
Only once. No, lots of times. It happens. It still happens.
And talk into that just a little bit.
I can be in conversation with a client and not understand their words or misread an intonation. And if the mistake comes, if I assume I know what they mean, and then we get off on the wrong track. But if I ask about it, like, what am I hearing here? Help me understand this. We can at least come together. And I've gotten a lot better at that, but there were moments early on in my coaching career, I was stumbling all over myself because I made a lot of assumptions in the words that the client were using. I thought I knew what they meant because I knew what they meant for me, but it wasn't what they meant. And I'll tell the story sometimes in either level 1 or level 2 about the time that I assumed what spirituality meant to somebody. And I did the very similar to the illustration you did with Jerome earlier. And except I was in a session and I wasn't trying to be a bad coach. I was just, hey, do you know about this place over here? And it's like, no, it's not what I'm here for. And it took us 10 minutes to get rapport back because I overstepped my bounds in the coaching relationship. We make mistakes, we move on, we learn from them.
And that's the key. We learn from them as we go through this. And so ICF has learned a lot through the many years that they've been doing this. They're changing their competencies to go with the times. And this is one of the concepts is we're not telling the client what to do. And the exchange still has enormous value in that process. All right, thanks.
I wanted to ask, getting back to ICF. Sorry, Brooke, I need.
Yeah, no, it was an ICF related question too.
So say that I'm looking at schools, and you can verify the school if they're ICF accredited. But what are if I'm a student who wants to be a coach, what are the things, no matter what school you go to, because all the schools have different sort of programs and structures and lengths, what are probably going to be the things that you'll see as a student that are distinctively ICF things that they'll teach you?
The core competencies. 75% of the curriculum has to be core competency based. So
80%, actually.
80%, yes.
What's a core competency? I'm a pretty competent person.
What's a core competency?
What do I need to learn that's even more competent than that?
Setting the contract.
So core competencies are essentially, there's 8 now. They're updated this year. They are basically the structure, I don't want to say rules, but they are in many ways the rules. Basically the guide. The guide for you to follow, the boundaries that a coach works in, but it's also in many ways sort of like a hand-holding guide kind of thing where these things definitely happen in the coaching session. This is definitely part of a coaching session, like I said, setting a contract, letting the client lead. Like there are 8 of them, and what's neat is the new ones are love the updates, and they updated them this year, and they're rolling them out in June. And so that is really sort of that, and the ethics as well. The ethics
I was going to ask that as the next question.
That is,
too.
the ethics are very important as well. So again, just like any self-help field, and I think really any field, any business, anything should have some sort of code of ethics as human beings. I think that's an important thing for us to have. So ICF has a very specific set of them as well. I believe there are 28 of them. The ethics?
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
28. So if I'm a student, I should whatever place I choose to be taught at the very least, they should go over with you what the code of ethics are and what the core competencies are.
Well, if it's ICF accredited, 80% of their curriculum has to be supporting and teaching the core competencies in some regard. Now, does that mean that they're just going to like read them over to you, out to you all day? No, it means that they will take them and expound on them and demonstrate them and show you different ways to utilize them. It doesn't mean that you're going to be verbatim memorizing the core competencies. It just means that is what the basis of the teaching is going to be within that school.
So I'm liking this whole ICF thing so far. How do you become a member after I go to school?
Before we go there though, before we even go there, wait, my turn. What if but wait, I have NLP training. I have hypnosis training. I have training in somatic healing. I have training in essential oils. I have all of this training, right?
Degree black belt.
What do I do with it if I'm just going to coach and I can only ask questions?
I'll sit out the window. I'm just kidding.
There's lots of things you can do with it.
And why did all these things exist? Because you're going to, I mean, anybody who's in the coaching world is going to run across these things are going to cross your path at some point.
So all of this supports the health and wellness and mindfulness, the wholeness of a person. And when they're coming to you for coaching, you're going to stick to coaching. When they're coming to you for NLP, you'll do NLP.
People go to people for NLP?
Yes.
Oh, I had no clue. I just thought it was something you integrated in like your everyday life. Like
you could, and the difference in the model, someone who might come to me for NLP or now hypnosis is different because hypnosis does not cross over into coaching. That separate contract. If I was using NLP or somatic work, if someone came specifically for those things, we'd be doing it. But if it's part of my coaching awareness, I can ask if they're interested in doing an exercise. I can't force it on like, let's do this somatic exercise now. That would not be coaching because that's the coach taking the lead and imposing a tool. But we can ask, would you be interested in exploring this? And then if they say yes, we can pull some of those other tools that do fall under coaching. But I'm hesitant to say all of that here because the main thing is, you got to trust the model first and let those tools come in later. You need mastery of this before you start incorporating all the other things.
That's what I always tell the students when they're like, but it's only questions. And we harp on that. We drive that home so much because you have spent however long of time you've been alive learning to give advice, to communicate this one way. And in 3 days, we got to break you of all those habits. Like we have to retrain your brain and retrain you give you a whole new way of communicating and approaching other people. And so because of that, we skyrocket to the other side of the realm. Like, we've got this side and this side, and we take you all the way to the other side. And that's in the hopes that when you find some balance is really what we want.
Because if you don't, there's a little bit of rigidity in embracing the model in level 1 because we're setting that solid foundation. Because if you came in for 3 days and we just said, go do what you're already doing, why would you do that? You're there to learn something new. And it's funny how many times you get the resistance, but I've always done it this way. Well, and that's then, and now here's a new thing. Like I've always used a hammer and a nail to put a hole in the wall, and now I have a drill. Oh wait, I want to go back to the hammer and the nail. No, let's use the drill this time and learn a new tool.
Sue has a question. She says, if a client starts sharing about what's been happening since last session, I let them talk and then try to ask, so is this where you want to focus tonight? In essence, is that setting the contract?
Not yet.
Maybe. It's also a bit leading.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's better to open it up and say, thanks for sharing that. and where would you like to go tonight, rather than the is this where, because then you're connecting back to the idea they presented.
So, okay.
Still be reflecting back, because I don't want the client to think that I haven't been listening. So nutshell, what I've heard, and share with me where you'd like to take tonight's session. Yeah.
So can we say it one more time, this time without the part, just how would, I'm sharing about my day. This is my day. Thank you, Dan. It's been my day.
So thanks for sharing. Thanks for telling me about your day. And I heard these things coming out of your day. So as we're sitting here in our session tonight, we've got about 55 minutes or so. What would you like to focus on this evening?
So you didn't pull the through line. You let that sit and be in its own space, and then you started the new space. And this is when we start the session. Okay, that's very clear. I appreciate
and
that.
that's starting the session. That's not setting the contract yet.
Right.
It's setting the contract. What does that look like? I'll be your.
So I've heard you share about your day. Thank you. Sounds like it's been an awesome day. What would you like to focus on this evening? Or, well, we're assuming this evening. What would you like to focus on in our time tonight?
I would like to focus on doing lives on Facebook.
Doing lives. So just so I understand, what does doing lives mean?
Just how I do them and how to approach them and what topics to use.
Okay. So in that space of discovering topics, how to do them, what would you like to get out of this conversation this evening in the next
I would like to know, I would like to have a specific plan of live topics for the next 2 months.
So a specific plan of topics for the next 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of our conversation tonight. Go ahead.
This is now opening up what we're going to do, what you're going to work on. This is opening that contract. Okay, go ahead.
So by the end of our conversation this evening, having a plan for the next 2 months worth of lives.
Yes, I want to plan for the next 2 months worth of lives, topics for each week. For the next 2 months by the end of the session, please. Thank you. Let's do it.
And there we have parameters for the conversation.
Now, but quickly, that is important because why is that important? What?
There's also one more piece is how will we know that you made
how will we know that you have successfully made that plan? And I would say, well, I would have 8 topics planned out in front of me on paper, ready to go by the time we're done. Or maybe it's not that on paper. It could be different for anybody. Maybe it's that I will walk out of here and know what they are, and I will write them down as soon as the session's over. It could be any number of things. But why is that important?
Where I know you, I already am familiar with you being a writer. I'm already familiar with you liking to write. So I might even ask a question around that with you.
Why is that important? Why is what does that do for the session? What does that do for the client? What does that do for the coach?
So
it keeps, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jim.
It keeps us on focus, and that's where the structure comes in, instead of just sitting down with friends and I want to do some lives. Oh, wow, that sounds really cool. And we just meander and have no point. When we put the structure on, I use the metaphor, it's like putting bumpers on a bowling alley. And by setting that marker of at the end of the session, we're going to have a plan for 2 months worth of content. Now as the conversational ball rolls down, if Brooke starts telling me a story about all the other things going on that distract her from writing content, we can ask the question to steer back in. What's most important to hear this story?
Because you know how my brain works. I see how it is.
No judgment, only observation. So we can ask the question to steer it back in, where when we're sitting with family and friends and there's no structure in the conversation, we wind up talking about God knows anything that just happens to flow from one sentence to another.
It also, on another level too, as a coach, while it helps you to sort of prove your value or worth, right? In many ways, I walk in as a client, I know what I want to work on. We talk about it. I know I'm going to have that thing, whatever it may be, by the end of that session. And that in itself is sort of a return on investment. In at least from my perspective, it is. And it's a way for them to measure that progress as well.
And it's
Um,
also a big thing for the coach who's worried about their value being in how do I show up and what do I deliver for an hour? Just ask.
yeah,
What's your takeaway
exactly.
from this session? And as soon as they say it, there
That
we
is
are.
beautiful. Like thank you for that, by the way, because that is right there is the answer. So wait, why would any client want me? Why would they hire me? What would they want me for? Well, all you have to do is ask them how they want to use that hour. And it's up to them. It's in their power, and you give them that space to do so.
If
And
I
yeah, oh
if
my
I
God, all the weight is off my shoulders.
had a client that came in, which I have. Let me retract this. When I had a client that came in, they have come in for couples work. We somehow got onto some business stuff that he was dealing with, this particular person. And so the contract at the beginning was talking about the relationship and whatever this X variable was. But as we got working in here, I recognized that in this moment that we weren't talking about the relationship with his spouse, we were talking about the relationship with his business. And in that business concept, that's a new contract. So I have to open that up. I'm noticing the shift in the conversation. I'm noticing these things. Is this a space? Would this be a good place for us to talk about this? Right? Or are we focusing back? So I have to give a boundary in this sense, because what the conversation began with is relationship. So I have to remind him, you set this boundary or you set this expectation from the coaching session tonight. I'm noticing that it shifted. I'm happy to go whichever way you want. And in this particular case, they went to business because they found through the discovery conversation that that business piece was what was affecting this relationship piece. So in the discussion of the business portion, that freed things up to get a different perspective on that relationship piece.
Well, and being somebody who is non-linear too, and Dan has been in sessions with me and knows, so just what we mentioned. So I can often appear to be meandering, but my meandering is not it's connecting all of these things together at the same time. But what Dan has never done when he's coached me is go, you've gone off on the left field. Like what he does is he asks how it relates, asks if this is where I want to go, asks if I'm still in the space, and he doesn't assume or push on me that I have gone wrong or gone left. He checks in, really is what it is, and then lets me guide. And that is really the big. There's a powerful difference there, because you can very quickly make a client feel like they have been gotten in trouble or they've gone off on the left and lose rapport and lose that trust by not handling that sort of situation delicately or just respectfully, really is what it is.
Here's a good example of this too. How does this relate back to ICF?
Right? Well, it's all coaching at the end of the day.
It's following the client's lead. Always about following the client's lead. The client sets the pace, the client sets the standard for the session.
And that is the coaching model. And so, yeah, we only have a few minutes left. And so a good point. And let's bring us back to the big umbrella of ICF. So ICF has provided this coaching model. They have said, this is what coaching is. This is how you do it. And as a coach, if I am out there and I want to, I've just heard about coaching. I really want to be a coach. What advice would you give them with regard to training and with regard to ICF? What is the key takeaway here for that brand new coach or wants to be a coach?
I would say first look for a certified program and verify it so that you know you are getting, and in this case, an ICF aligned, because they are the big dog in the space, that you're going to be learning the proper model, because the other side of all this is, and the question was asked early on, why is it important? Because someday there will be licensing and or some sort of registration that either comes from a state or a federal government, or the ICF will be involved in writing that legislation, or they're going to say, we'll self-regulate, thank you very much. so that you are in alignment with that when it does occur.
Mm-hmm. And then so that's the head space. The heart space, talk to people, call people at different places, get a feel for it. We like to feel like we're family. I mean, every coaching session, every class session, it all just feels like a family where we have expanded and shared knowledge, practiced that knowledge. And at the end of the day, you come back and you let us know what help you need along the way. We have different partners. We have different people that can help in the moment, all kinds of different things. So for me in the heart space, I want to go somewhere where I feel really comfortable. For me, and why we've kept it this way, I like going to intensives because I get submerged into the process. I get ingrained and pull out more details than when I have gone to things that take a little longer. So for me, this process works beautifully.
By the way, Jerome, how are you?
Context to that. My second shot yesterday. So this is the day after, and doing all right. I'm doing all right. Good, hanging in here. And to add on to Lisa, I'd like to say, yes, do your research. We all have our different processes. I tend to lean towards the intensive, just as Lisa explained. Some prefer to go on a 6-month trek with a program where that's more beneficial to them. So do your research. Again, call in. Make sure you get some time with the people who are going to eventually, inevitably run into throughout the training. So that would be my advice.
I would also say compare training hours for training hours concept.
Anthony.
Going into sort of back to the headspace, it's will only be good for business to go through an ICF accredited program and becoming eventually ACC, PCC, MCC, and we'll go over what those are next week as well, and what the different levels and different paths you can take too. But people want to trust that they are getting a good service that's set to a high standard, and including that as well in the blog post that I'll attach to this. I will put in a link to how to verify the schools and how to verify coaches that are accredited as well, because I recently encountered a scenario where I had lots of people trying to pass themselves off as ICF accredited coaches, and they were not. Well, be very helpful if you ever want to get a coach yourself and you want to verify if they're ICF accredited or not.
That brings up another really quick angle, if I can throw it in, that as coaches, we're asking people to invest in our service.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone is not willing to invest in themselves to get trained properly, do you really want to be going to them when they're asking you to invest in them? That seems a little out of balance.
Agreed. Well, and that's what I was going to sort of touch on, is that while anybody can go out there and call themselves a coach, and anybody can go out there and say that that is in fact what they're doing, I myself personally would like to know that what I'm truly offering is in fact coaching, and is in fact that, and I just would hope that people would acknowledge that there is a reason it's called coaching. There is a reason it's a specific thing. It is not just like, it's not something that we can just run. I can't go out and coach professional baseball tomorrow just because I feel, like just because I watched a game. It's not possible. There's some training that has to come into play for that to happen. And so take the time to get that training. And there's a lot of different offerings out there. There's a lot of different ways to get it. There's a lot of it spans the gamut of training. And so there's something out there that will fit in your world, that will fit your schedule, that will do well for you, and just take advantage of that. And it, like Dan said, invest in yourself so that others invest in you, and know that by doing so, it will only provide you with more knowledge, more anything. And then for anybody out there who says it's just asking questions, it's just, well, you don't know until you try. first and foremost. You have no clue how effective it's going to be until you've actually put it into action. And so you cannot judge it. You cannot say what it is. You cannot until you actually learn what it is. That's the first step. So you can't poo-poo it. You can't until you actually know what it is. So take a moment and learn, and then see
what
if it works for you.
But it's also what it isn't.
Yes.
There
Well,
are things that it's not, that those that have just hung their shingle are not doing things in it. And I want to say,
which is a bummer because sometimes it doesn't go well, and that's a bummer but there are, the reality is coaching is highly effective. It is something that does create change and does help people with their lives, and does in fact make things good or better for a lot of folk. And it may seem like it's a very simple model, but it's simple, but it's also very complex at the same time. And there are a lot of levels and layers to it. Because it may start in one place, but it always ends up somewhere else. So, because we are people, as human beings, we are whole human beings, and we are multifaceted, and just like we are multifaceted, so is coaching. And so what's your niche? And that's that. But that's about it for today, I think. Thank you guys. And I guess my last thing for anybody out there looking for a school, make sure they're ICF accredited. Really, honestly, that's what you want. You don't want to later get that at least out of the way, and then you can go to all the schools that aren't.
The rest, just come to us. We're good.
Yeah,
But yes.
Just go to us.
3 days. 3 days.
I always like to say though, if we're not for you, we're still here for you. That's okay. But 3 days, yes, 3 days.
I have
award winning. 3 days, award winning. What?
I never mind. I probably shouldn't say this. I have someone
Okay.
who calls me and has been calling me regularly for the last 3 years, who has not come to us, went somewhere else, and did not get.
I have one as well. That has never been to our school, that is regularly gets advice and help from me, and I advise. Yes. All right, that's all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching out there in Facebook, YouTube, social media land. And check out Certified Life Coach Institute. We train coaches in 3 days. CertifiedLifeCoachInstitute.com. I'm gonna create our own jingle.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Once again, this is brought to you by Certified Life Coach Institute. We're an ICF accredited school who certifies our life coaches in 3-day online intensive courses. In addition to other podcast episodes, feel free to check us out every Tuesday at 4:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube or Facebook for our CLCI Lives, where we get together and discuss various topics that are centered around sharpening your skills so you can become a better certified life coach. For more information, feel free to visit us at CertifiedLifeCoachInstitute.com. Until next time, be well.